Welcome to Threads of Sustainability. I'm your host, Bridget O'Flaherty. With climate change and environmental impacts becoming a common narrative in our daily lives, it seems like a great time to explore what sustainability looks like in the quilting, fiber, and textile world. We'll hear from creatives, makers, manufacturers, and producers from all over the world to discover what sustainability looks like to them and find out how they're contributing to a sustainable future. We will celebrate positive steps people are taking, no matter how small. Whether you're a hobbyist or a pro, you can bring sustainability into your practice. Join me as we take a deep dive into the environmental, social, and economic impacts with Threads of Sustainability. I want to welcome Céleste Compion from Three Cats Shweshwe, and she's got some really great things to say and talk to us about. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Excellent. So Shweshwe fabrics, am I saying that right?
You are.
Okay, good. What are Shweshwe fabrics?
In a nutshell, it's just basically a cotton print fabric that's made in South Africa. But the name Shweshwe comes from a historical connection at a time when settlers from Europe were settling in Southern Africa, and they introduced indigo print, which was being made in factories in those days. And that's what the people were wearing who were settling in Southern Africa.
Right.
They introduced indigo print to the tribes living in Southern Africa who were not wearing clothes like Westerners. They were wearing little pieces of loincloths, really, made of animal skins. And Europeans felt you need to cover your body. And so they said, yeah, this is the fabric. And there are lots of stories about who got it first and how it was introduced. But the one that has stayed, because this name has stuck, is French missionaries gave a gift of indigo print to King Shweshwe of the Sotho tribe in Southern Africa. And we're talking 1850s, 1860s.
Okay.
And the fabric was named the fabric of King Shweshwe, Isishweshwe, King Shweshwe. It's a Sotho word saying the fabric of the king.
Okay.
And the name stuck. It has other names in South Africa too, in different languages. Okay. But Shweshwe is the name that has kind of gone universal.
Okay. And how did you get introduced to Shweshwe fabrics?
I grew up in South Africa. I was born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa, and my family were knitters and sewers. So fabric was a thing that I just lived with. And we're talking 60s, people were making their own clothes. Lots of people were making their own clothes. I learned about Shweshwe in that time because it's what African women mostly were wearing in South Africa. But as a young woman, as a teenager and a young woman at university, I saw way more of it being worn by non-ethnic people as an anti-apartheid statement.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't regarded as cultural appropriation. It's got such an interesting background.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of wrap skirt that African women wear as a statement of being a married woman.
Okay.
A makoti is a married woman, a young married woman, a bride. Right. And the makoti skirt is the statement. So it's a wrap skirt made of Shweshwe panels that are pre-printed.
Okay.
And you can purchase those skirts in little stores, like a micro business, or you can purchase pre-printed skirt panels and make your own wrap skirt.
Okay.
And so on campus, there would often be young women wearing these skirts. And I had got one too, of course, as this anti-apartheid statement saying you can keep us apart, but we can support each other and we are one.
Okay.
So it is a statement of equality and a statement of solidarity in those days.
Right. Okay.
And I chatted about it in the past. Since I've started my business, I've chatted about it to the producers just to get the pulse of that now.
Right.
And it's still not regarded as cultural appropriation. It is regarded as a statement of solidarity. And
interesting.
It has made a crossover into mainstream fashion in South Africa.
That's so interesting. that cultural part of it has become such a social statement politically almost in textiles. That's super interesting. And so how did you decide you wanted to do a business out of it?
That's a really good question. I'm a retired high school teacher. I'm two things. Okay. I am a rabid quilter and I love teaching people.
Nice.
And so I had been quilting, for years and years. And I had taught in South Africa and taught in Canada. And in 2013, I was still teaching. We were having a conversation at home, my husband and I, and he said, why don't you import Shweshwe? Because every time I would go to South Africa on visiting family and stuff, I would bring a bunch of Shweshwe home.
Right.
I bought for myself and also as gifts for people here. Because any quilter who saw anything I was making with Shweshwe was like, what is that? Because it's
so I want to stop you there, actually. So what makes the fabric Shweshwe? We know that it's got indigo, but what makes that unique? There's lots of indigo around the world. So what makes it unique?
It was introduced to South Africans during the Industrial Revolution in colonial times.
Okay.
And what makes it unique is that it is now a heritage product that is still the same as it was in that time.
So you mean like the production is the same?
Everything is the same.
Okay.
It's produced on 36-inch wide looms.
Okay.
So there was a time that many fabrics were produced. In fact, all fabrics were produced 36 inches wide.
I remember that like in the late 70s, early 80s, that was how wide fabrics were. Calicos, that kind of thing.
And then it was really exciting when the 44-inch came out.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it is more economical, you can fit more stuff across the width,
Yeah.
This fabric is still made on heritage looms, so it's 36 inches wide.
Okay.
So that's the one thing. The second thing is that its production method is still the same as the method they were using in the very beginning when they started producing printed fabrics on fabric printing presses.
Okay.
And the way that they printed these early indigo prints was they would dye the fabric in indigo first, and then when it's dyed and dry, it runs through rollers on the special fabric printing press, and the rollers have been pre-prepared by hammering out little holes to make a design.
Wow.
The fabric runs through those rollers and a weak acid solution is discharged through the holes, bleaches out little dots on the indigo that creates a design. So it's like the reverse of batik.
Yeah, it's like, it's not printing on the fabric, it's printing away from the fabric.
It's spinning the dye out. It's bleaching the dye out.
Okay.
And so when you look up close, you will see it's kind of dotty and pixelated.
Okay.
Because it's these little holes that create the design.
Right, but it's not holes in the fabric, it's just holes in the rollers that they're on.
Yes.
Okay.
And so originally you would have had so many people on the production line, like you had to have the artists who designed the design, and then the skilled craftspeople who would hammer out those little holes by hand on the rollers, and then those rollers go onto the presses and then print.
Okay.
And originally it would have been mostly indigo, but also, and please forgive me, the browns and reds, your typical 3 calico colors. Yeah. And I don't always remember. I know madder is one of the things.
Yeah, madder is an orange, and then there's a turkey red. There's the browns are the usually a black walnut of some sort, but there's lots of browns, and they probably wouldn't, I don't know, maybe they would have used walnut because it does have tannins and it takes the dye. Like it doesn't need a fixative to keep it in the fabric, basically. So,
and we're talking by the time the Industrial Revolution was underway, and they were producing things in factories by machine, they were producing not natural.
Okay. Synthetic dyes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Lost my word.
Synthetic dyes. Well, yeah, around 1856 was the first purples were invented in synthetic dyes. And then
Yes.
reds came shortly after that. Yeah. And with that industrial revolution, those synthetic dyes really took off as well, right?
Correct.
And it just changed the textile industry in such a massive way.
Huge. I mean, because of production being faster and cheaper, it became something that everybody could have. You know, you don't have to grow your own stuff, work on your own loom. You have to get a job and money.
Yeah.
And you're going to start being able to buy.
But there were yards of fabric available all the time. Yeah.
Yes. And this particular fabric, the one that becomes modern Shweshwe, would have been the fabric that working class and agricultural people were wearing. It has a slightly heavier hand than the delicate cottons of the drawing room.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the hand of denim.
Okay.
It's still a light cotton, still drapes.
Right.
And
but
so
it's got body to it.
Yes. And it's durable. It's going to last while you work.
Right. Okay.
Working people's clothes.
What a fascinating story. Okay. So I interrupted you. You were talking to me about how you were why you decided to open this business.
I was still working as a teacher. I was fascinated by this fabric myself. It's a connection to my home, to my roots. And I had been bringing it home when I'd been on holiday as gifts. My husband said to me, why don't you reach out to the producers and ask, what are their requirements if I want to be an importer? And so it was wonderful. In 2013, the two of us, my husband and I, on a visit to South Africa, flew to East London and then were picked up by an absolutely wonderful young man who was a salesperson for Dagama Textiles, the makers of Shweshwe. And he took us to the factory, which is about 45 minutes drive from East London in a town called Zwelitsha. Okay. So it's in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. It is decentralized. We're not talking one of the big cities of the country.
Okay.
And I went to the factory and I had a tour. And I met Helen Bester, who eats, sleeps, lives Shweshwe.
Right.
And she heads up the marketing department, but, she just loves Shweshwe.
Right.
And so she has trained a whole new generation of Dagama people in marketing. I've got the full background story there. So at that time, as a young person I wasn't so young anymore, but as a young person growing up in South Africa, I always just thought Shweshwe is an African print.
Right.
Because African people wear it.
Right.
But that's when I learned that it's actually like many other African prints throughout Africa. It was a European product.
Right.
That was introduced by colonial settlers. And it was indigenized.
Yeah, that's fascinating that is now such a cultural iconic identification, and it's they're owning the colonization now in such a positive way, really.
Yes, in fact, the colonial history of South Africa. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but
sure.
There were many countries involved. But in the end, Britain was the country that conquered the others and conquered the ocean. And so the southern tip of Africa was strategically important. And so South Africa became a British colony. And in those early colonial days, there literally was a law called the Modesty Law.
Oh, wow. And
the Modesty Law in the settlements was, in your ethnic village, you may practice your ethnic practices. But when you come into the settler village, you need to be covered from neck to knee. Your body must be covered from neck to knee. And the tribes living in Southern Africa were hunter-gatherers and stock herders. They were not spinners and weavers. They didn't make fabric.
Right.
And so the Europeans sold them the fabric.
Okay.
And so
so how did it become production for South Africans? Like, is it considered something that South Africans purchase and wear, or is it now something that South Africans, like the indigenous people, are part of the production?
It has changed. So what happened was, at the time that it was introduced, all over the world, people were wearing these fabrics because it was the fabric of the people.
Sure.
But it became a huge market in Southern Africa. And so beyond that time, from the 1850s and 60s, all the way into 1992, this fabric stayed in production in England, in Manchester, by a company called the Spruce Company. And it was still made and produced and exported to South Africa for this indigenous market.
Wow. Okay.
In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Dagama Textiles became involved in South Africa, and they were producing some lines under license from the British company, but it was still a colonially owned company.
Interesting.
And so there was this really interesting colonial history going on for generations.
No kidding.
But 1990, apartheid ended with the release of Nelson Mandela. And then you had the transition period from 1990 until 1994 when the first election happened. Mm-hmm. And in that period, Dagama Textiles purchased all the rights and everything from the mother company in England.
Okay.
And so in 1992, Dagama Textiles in South Africa became the new owner of this product.
Okay.
And Dagama Textiles has been a ethical producer in terms of their employment. And so they employ people from across the board in South Africa, and their design team, their marketing team, their production team represents the diversity of South Africa.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about the company, because that's one of the reasons that I've asked you onto this show, is because there is a really clear sustainability link with not only the production and the employees, but also they have other side programs that offer help for entrepreneurs in the area. And then they also are starting to do some environmental stuff. So they actually touch on all three pillars of sustainability. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about the structure of the employees that are there.
So Dagama Textiles has a profit sharing policy. 48% of their profits goes into trust. And when it yields dividends, it gets shared across the board by all employees, no matter of the level, whether they're production on the production floor or marketing or administration.
They all get equal share.
Yeah. There's a structure that dividends get shared across the board.
That's amazing.
And there is such loyalty in this company from people. It's not just about the fact that they are an ethical employer, but it's because people love the product.
Yeah.
It has such a heart quality. Its nickname in South Africa is the tartan of South Africa.
Okay.
So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So it starts out by being connected to culture and ethnic cultural practices, but it has crossed those lines into fashion. And people just love this fabric. It represents South Africa. And it has moved with the changes in the country. So it starts out being a product of the colonies.
Kind of an oppressive product, really.
Yes, belonging to a colonial power who forced it onto people.
Yeah.
Saying, you will cover your body.
Yeah.
And it progresses and eventually becomes something that people own.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of marriage, part of funerals, part of important celebrations. And then in the new South Africa, it becomes the fabric you wear for the opening of Parliament. And when royalty comes to visit, you're going to wear your Shweshwe outfit to meet royalty. Right. So it's gone right there. So if you, in fact, I grew up in South Africa, and I blush to say that what the royals do in England, I read about. I just do.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So
well, that's okay.
When there's a big wedding, I kind of watch it. And there will be the royalty of Lesotho and Swaziland attending the royal weddings in England wearing Shweshwe outfits. And I've had some of my Shweshwe people then reach out to me and say, look, I watched and I saw the Shweshwe outfit.
Yeah. And suddenly you're recognizing it and
Yes.
as we're talking, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've definitely seen that situation. I've seen that in different situations and not realized the significance of it. Mm. And the history of it. There's another part of the history that I just want to touch on again. I want to go back because I want to come back to these other sustainability stuff. But we were talking earlier, and you mentioned a back stamp. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. So in olden times, in Industrial Revolution times, calicos had a back stamp. It was their logo. It was their brand.
This is on the back side of the fabric.
Yes, on the back of the fabric. It's the brand. Okay. And calicos did that. They would put their brand on the back. And there were several Shweshwe producers in Europe and even in America in those times that were exporting to Southern Africa, and they all had their back stamps. And the one that has particularly been purchased by Da Gama from the producer in Manchester is Three Little Cats.
Okay.
And so to this day, modern Shweshwe has the Three Cats back stamp. And the back stamp is really important.
Yeah.
Because it ensures that you are buying the brand with the history.
Right.
Because, of course, there are fakes being made offshore.
Yeah.
There are knockoffs being made offshore. They are so successful that when Da Gama releases some new prints, or a new line, within 2 weeks, that design has been copied, produced in polycotton, not always in 100% cotton.
Right.
In clothes, and within 2 weeks, those clothes are on sale.
Wow.
In South Africa. Wow. And so it has actually impacted the market quite extensively because South Africa is a poor country.
Sure.
And people who want to wear Shweshwe can't always afford the good stuff.
Sure.
And so they will purchase the knockoffs. The knockoffs do not last the way the Three Cats product lasts.
Well, and they don't have that social impact as well, right?
They don't have all of that.
The economic.
And it has influenced the producers. It has had an impact on the producers. So there is an education arm telling South Africans about the impact of buying the knockoffs in terms of employing South Africans.
Right, of course.
So they want to protect South African job market.
That economy, for sure. Yeah. Tell me about Kekfesh too.
So there's another whole story. So originally, the roots of this indigo print dates back to European folk fabrics. If you go and look in all the folk fabrics of Europe, you will find blue and white prints, little geometrics or little floral prints. If you look at German and Czechoslovakian and Hungarian, Portuguese, French, everybody, they've got this in their background. And Shweshwe dates back to those roots. In particular, the skirts with a border print that you still find to this day in certain folk fabrics in Europe. There is one that is still in production called Kekfesh from Hungary, and they still do block printing.
Okay.
With resist paste.
Okay.
And you can Google them. So during the USSR period, when the Russians were occupying so many of the countries in Eastern Europe, production of Kekfesh went underground.
Okay. Because
it was never really communized.
Right.
It never went into the whole commune production. It went underground. It has surfaced again post-USSR. You can find this fabric now. In Hungary, you can go on tour and visit the production areas. And I think there is somebody in England who is marketing it in the same way that I market Shweshwe.
Okay. So it's like a parallel fabric.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
And when you see it, you will see, oh yeah, it's got that look.
That same kind of look, yeah.
And it looks like the reproduction prints, Civil War reproduction prints has got that look as well.
Okay.
And Shweshwe has that look of Civil War reproduction prints because it dates from the same period.
Right, okay.
But the interesting thing is that Cakefish 2 and Shweshwe are not reproduction.
Right.
They've just never changed.
Right. That's amazing. And so then tying back to talking a little bit more about the sustainability piece, we talked about the profit sharing, which is amazing. There's also the entrepreneur program.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Across South Africa, in the tiniest places, there are micro businesses, which means a person with a sewing machine.
Right.
Treadles are not a big thing in South Africa, but the hand crank sewing machine.
Okay.
And of course, where there is power, people are using electric machines, but you still find hand crank machines in far-flung areas of South Africa.
Okay.
Hand crank or hydro, one or two women with their machines would have a little business, and the business would be making mostly articles of clothing, but also other home articles, mostly with Shweshwe.
Right.
And Dagama is well aware of this practice. In fact, they did some research, and this is the buying pattern. Monday morning, the micro business owner would come into the local little Shweshwe store and purchase the yardage that is required for the orders that have been placed.
Okay.
She goes home. It's mostly women, but there are men. She goes home with her purchases. Got to do the washing because you've got to wash out the sizing because these fabrics are still heavily sized.
Right.
So you wash the fabric to get it soft. You get it ready. You cut. You prepare. Wednesday, there is another little boom where a little bit of extra is bought because of shrinkage or because you need a little bit of this or that. So there's a little bit of a peak buying happening on Wednesday, and then the products are done by the Friday and delivered. And then that micro business owner does her own shopping for her own whatever on the Saturday, goes to church on Sunday. Monday she comes back and she starts buying for the new week.
Wow.
And Dagama knows this. They did research and they found out. And so there is a term called Shweshwepreneur.
Okay.
And the Shweshwepreneurs are these micro business owners. And so what Dagama has done is they have offered Shweshwepreneur workshops.
Okay.
And they're micro business workshops. A day workshop, so you can't leave your job for too long.
Right,
so you go for a day, and these little workshops will happen all over the country. And you learn about growing your micro business, about accounting or design or whatever to grow your little business. And at the end of the day, you get a little certificate. It's all for free.
I was just going to ask about that. Yeah, it's free.
All for free. And of course, it's building bonds.
Of course. It's networking.
Yeah, it's networking and it's the producer giving back to its market.
Right.
So that's the one thing they do is they are developing the micro business owners.
Sure. They're also, it's creating loyalty with their brand too, right? Yeah.
So some of the micro businesses are not only making clothes, there are also small businesses making toys and bags and things like that to raise money for various support groups like AIDS orphans, shelters for women for various reasons, mostly and violence, women who are escaping violence.
Okay.
And so to raise money to run these centers, there are people making toys or clothing or bags with Shweshwe. Okay. And what Dagama does for those groups is they provide access to seconds and fence. That's a new word that I hadn't heard.
Fins? What did you say?
Fents. Fence.
Fence. Okay.
And fence are kind of scraps that get discarded in the production process.
Like the offcuts.
Yes. So when they're getting a line ready, the beginning and the end, sometimes the prints aren't lining up properly or whatever. So those ends go into a seconds pile, and a lot of these small groups get access to those fence for free or for a really, really low cost to make their products.
Right.
There is also quite a famous group in South Africa called Shweshwe Poppis. And Poppi is Poppi, P-O-P-P-I.
Okay, poppies.
So if you were looking at it as an English speaker, you'd say Poppi.
Poppy, yes.
But a Poppi is a little doll.
Okay, a doll. Okay.
So there's this company, a school feeding group. They feed like 34,000 children in 13 feeding centers in Johannesburg. And their income is from making little dolls out of Shweshwe.
Okay.
And so they're providing employment for women who are making the dolls. The money that they raise is to feed children in these feeding centers. And the design of the dolls is based on children's drawings in the centers.
That's amazing.
So they literally, you know how children, when they're really, really small, the way that the development of drawing is like a head with arms.
Giant heads.
And
yes.
They copy those drawings and they make dolls that look like that. They're so adorable.
That's awesome.
And you can find them on Facebook.
Okay.
If you Google Shweshwe Poppies, and they sell these dolls like cuddle size right down to key ring size.
Nice. Yeah, well, I'll put the link. I'll put the link for that into the show notes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can purchase these dolls, and the fundraising goes to food for
That's
children.
amazing. There's so many different projects they've got going on there.
It's wonderful, and it's connected. The other story that's amazing, Bridget, is that very often before there was funding for these things, it would come from donations from outside of South Africa.
Right.
But they have progressed now into being self-sufficient and providing employment for South Africans. So it's a really good progression, and Shweshwe is right in there.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
part of that progression.
And so they do have an environmental piece that they're starting to address now too, right? Tell us about that.
So apart from the social connection, which is huge, the producers have been addressing environmental issues. In particular, when you're printing and dyeing fabric, you use a lot of water.
Yes, it's very water intensive.
Consumption is huge.
Yeah.
Plus, there's horrible effluent.
Yes.
Because you're rinsing and then you've got all this water full of dye and chemicals. Yes. So what Dagama does is they have effluent dams, just like a mine.
Okay, like the tailing ponds, sort of.
Exactly. They have tailings dams, and they recycle the water in production. So they're reducing the amount of water they use. Plus, once it's been through a certain number of cycles, the water is cleaned and purified, and it gets used for agriculture because the factory is in a rural area. Right. Okay. And it's surrounded by farmland. Yeah. And so its effluent, after being recycled, is used for agriculture. So that's awesome. One. They use their water sustainably. The second arm is they require electricity or hydro power to run the factory, and they've been using on the grid. South African power is mostly run by coal.
What they call dirty power.
Dirty power.
Yeah.
And so Dagama has been moving themselves onto providing power by wood chips. Okay. So it still is producing emissions.
Yeah, but it's a biofuel, so it's a different...
It's a biofuel. Yeah. So they have biomass boilers fueled by wood chips to produce their own steam, to produce their own power.
That's amazing.
To get them off the grid.
Yeah.
And both the water management and the power management is on a sliding scale, and they are moving more and more and more to improve their sustainability, to improve their reduction of the footprint.
And so they're really encompassing the full three pillars of sustainability between the social, economic, and environmental. It's such an amazing story to hear about. I want you to tell me now how we can find Shweshwe fabric, how we can find Meerkat Shweshwe here in Canada, and how people might be able to get it.
I started the business in 2013. At that stage, I thought that I was going to be a distributor.
Right.
I wasn't going to do retail.
Okay.
I learned very quickly that was not sustainable as a business.
Right.
My accountant gave me a little chat and he said, you need to do a blend. Okay. So I do retail and wholesale. I have an online business, which has been amazing during the pandemic in particular.
Sure.
And also in a very large country.
Right.
So I do online sales within Canada and cross-border. And you can find me at meerkatshweshwe.com. I also sell wholesale. So I've had people from the film industry, from stage, from theater companies reach out to me, and I sell to them wholesale to use for productions, because it has this calico look. And so people are interested if they're looking for something that has an old look, a period piece. I've been reached for that. And I travel around doing quilt shows. I've been to various quilt shows where I do the booth and build.
That's where we first met.
That's where we first met and build this absolutely fantastic Shweshwe community. The quilting and fabric community is more than business.
Yeah.
It crosses the bonds of huge friendship bonds.
Yeah.
And so I'm online, I'm in person. I have a studio that we have built on top of my husband's workshop. I'm in a loft on our property. I used to be in the basement with the washing machine.
Get out of the basement.
And then I now, after years and years and years of sewing in the basement or sewing on the corner of the kitchen table, I have my own space.
Right.
And before the pandemic, it was a teaching space, and I'd have open houses. So people would travel and come to the open house. I'm beginning to do open house again.
Okay.
But it's been so exciting. I've actually had people from upstate New York reach out to me, and then they do a road trip.
So do you have a newsletter that people sign up for that they get to hear about that?
So
okay.
If they go onto my website, I have sales events and stuff for my followers.
Awesome.
The interesting thing about Shweshwe is I'm not involved in production whatsoever.
Right.
I'm just selling the fabric.
Yes.
And the producers always produce the classics in those 3 calico colors with those old classic designs that date back to colonial times.
Yeah.
But they have innovated, and they've introduced bright, bold, modern colors with bright, bold, modern prints, and they sell both. They don't stop the old stuff. The classics and the moderns are being sold together.
Nice.
And so there's a range. Plus, in the past 3 years, they've done something that we never thought would happen. They have produced low volume prints as well. So you can get gold on white, white on white, indigo on white, and cream. So as quilters, I've got the full range. Lights, mediums, darks, brights, classics, anything.
And they're all still under that Shweshwe label.
They're all under the Shweshwe label. They all have the 3 Cats back stamp. I even have plains.
Oh, wow.
Very limited, because, of course, there's lots of other plains out there, but I've got 4 plains because they're just the right colors. I'm also always happy to be invited by groups and guilds.
Oh, yeah. So you do these talks and telling stories about what the Shweshwe is.
Yeah. So I do front show and tell the story.
Amazing. You tell a story really well. Could talk to you probably for another 2 hours because you have an enormous wealth of knowledge of the history of these fabrics, and it's fascinating. But what a great story to understand and to link into sustainability. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Bridget. I love that there is amplification of the story. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
What a fascinating, complex, difficult history this fabric has. And I think that it is really worthwhile having these conversations, talking about uncomfortable stories in some ways, but knowing that there are changes happening, that there are companies like this that are doing the work, digging deep, making a difference in their communities, as well as trying to tackle some of the environmental impacts of their industry. I think that that's really, really worthwhile. And some of the small things we can do is we can purchase fabric like this. We can purchase and support these efforts that are being done by these different kinds of companies and projects that they're working on. Those are things we can do from our end to help support the sustainability that they're already laying the foundation for. I think it's really exciting to hear about companies like this, and I hope you do too. If you're interested in a community that engages with sustainability in quilting and textiles, you can join the Learning Hub at BridgetO'Flaherty.com. There you will find memberships, online courses, supplies, and resources for sustainability and my textile art. You can also book me to speak with or teach your group. You can find me on social media at The Sustainable Quilter. Don't forget to comment, like, and share, and to follow me on your favorite podcast app so you won't miss an episode. Thanks for joining me, and I'm so excited to share this journey with you. Until next time, happy stitching.